Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda Lovisa, and today I'm going to be demonstrating an island in Northwestern Ontario. I do a bit of traveling, and Northwestern Ontario is sort of a playground for me. And this particular island, it doesn't look like an island right now because you can't see the water on each side. But anyway, this is Sandpoint Island. And it is a very popular place for boating in the summertime. So I'm going to do a little bit of a study on water and sky, and of course some beautiful trees. So let's get started. So what I did is I started with the yellow tonal wash for my canvas. I always like to give it a bit of color before I get started, and this has dried. So let's get our brushes all conditioned, and I'm going to be using some flat brushes, and I'm just giving them a dip in the water, sending them for a swim, and let's get started. So the very first thing I'm going to start with is the sky area, because later on I'm going to overlap some trees here. And I'm going to pick up the white, and you've seen me do this before, where I always add the white first into my sky area. Now it's very difficult to see because this is an old photograph. I actually took a photo of the photograph because it was like a hard copy way back when you didn't have a cell phone, and so it's quite faded, but it is a favorite place for many people to go in the summertime by boat. And there's a basic lay-in for the sky, and now I'm picking up some cobalt blue with my white, and I'm just going to add it to the edges first. Here we go. Another one over here. And notice how I'm just kind of painting around where my clouds are going to be. Now I'm starting to blend into it. I'm using a short handled brush, so I handle it a little bit differently. And there we go. Just get that in there. And move that color around. And one of the things that you will notice as I'm doing my sky, I am not going like this when I'm adding my sky. See how I'm doing a cross-hatching action. And that makes your skies a lot more interesting. Now let's bring that right down here. Now there's a sliver of water showing on the other side of the island right about here. So I'm going to bring that dark line in right there. And let's add some more white over here. Another brush. I'm just going to add a little bit more paint there. I'm picking up more of the white, and let's drop that in there. Just make those clouds just a little bit brighter. There we go. And move that up into the blue and white blend. Just like that. Now I will be revisiting this sky a little bit later on. Maybe not. Let's see, if I add enough paint right now, then I don't have to revisit that sky a little later. And there we go. Let's bring in some color here. A little bit more paint. I'm starting to run out of white on my palette, but that's all right. There we go. I can always add a little bit more paint in here and shape those clouds. Now these are the easiest way to make clouds, something that's off in the distance, not a lot of detail, just that atmospheric summer look about it. There we go. Now while I'm doing this area here, I'm also going to bring some color down here for the water. Now I'm picking up the ultramarine blue. we go. Bring the cobalt blue and again downward stroke like so, and the ultramarine blue. Now this area is going to be a little bit darker because I do have a reflection from the trees here, so I'm just bringing that in now, and then when I bring in the trees a little bit later, it's already deposited. And also the cerulean blue. And now I'm doing a horizontal stroke. I was doing a vertical stroke to start off with, and now I'm doing a horizontal stroke and cutting into. And I will be bringing in a little bit more stroke work in the water later. So I'm just going to lighten this area here a little bit. A little bit more white paint there, like so. There we go. And pull that down and over, down and over, down and over. All right, let's go to the land. First of all, I need to bring this in like so. I'm just going to set that brush down for a moment. So the beach itself is sandy color, and I happen to have the parchment white on my palette, and there's a little bit of blue on here, so when you add the parchment white and the blue, it gives you a really nice sort of sandy color there. Now, wasn't that nice and easy to bring that in? Now this is a rocky area, and the rocks on this part of the rocks on this island are kind of a pinky gray, and you can see that they're a little bit more gray over here, and up in here you've got both colors. Part of it is the lichen on the rocks, and I'm picking up now the cobalt blue with the red light, and I'm just going to bring that color combination together here. Now this brush still has that parchment white on it, a little bit more red light, and I'm just going to block that in like that. There we go. And you can see that it's got a little bit of that pinkish tone to it, which is exactly what I'm looking for. And I'm going to add a little bit more red light. A little bit at a time. Always go into your red just a tiny bit at a time. Now we've got that color over here as well, and up here on the ridge. So why not bring it in when you see it? There we go. There's where that color is. And over here as well. There we go. Just like that. Let's give this a bit of a blend. Add some of the yellow deep to this, and then I'm going to add a bit more of that parchment white. So let's bring that color over here, and over here you can see it's much grayer, but let's get some paint over here. So back to the cobalt blue and the white. And bringing that in. And like this. There we go. And like that. And bring that down like so. There we are. And let's go like that for those rocks. Bring in a little bit more movement for those rocks. A little bit more color as well. There we go. Back to the parchment white. And the parchment white I'm adding to the colors I've deposited for the rocks. And notice that I'm not doing every little rock individually. I'm looking at it as a whole. So I'm just kind of bringing in some shapes in there, some abstract shapes to represent those rocks. And over here, they're a little bit more grayish, and I'm going to use the ultramarine blue over here to create that gray. It's the same colors on my brush. I've got a really nice dark shadow there, so I'm going to use a different brush and load it with the ultramarine blue and the red deep. That's going to give me a really nice dark shadow right in here. So it's something like that. Look how nice and dark that is. So let's bring that in. There we go. Flip my brush. There we are. And I've got a nice dark shadow over here. Like that. And back here as well. There we go. And we've got a nice dark shadow here. It's amazing what happens when you start to add your dark shadows. Now there's trees that are going to go here, but we'll just leave that for now. And pick up more of the ultramarine blue and the red deep, and look how nice and dark that is. And I'm just going to bring it along the water's edge. I need more paint. So as I'm skipping along the water's edge, I'm thinking of some of the shadows of the rock shapes that are on the edge there. And let's go back over here and just kind of make that an irregular edge here instead of a straight line across. Just going to bring that in there like that. And down here, there's the edge of your water. And we've got a tiny bit of the light showing through the water from the beach. It extends out. Whoops, I need some paint on that brush. Just pulling some of that parchment white into the water, just ever so gently moving your brush in. A little more paint. There we go. There's the water's edge. And need the blue brush again. And I'm just going to start to bring that in like so. Now we need some lighter colors in the water. So I'm going to use the cerulean blue with the white. And just bring a few lines in. And of course, a little bit later on, I will go back into this painting and bring in a lot more work into the water area. But, you know, this is a start. It kind of gives you a little bit of an idea on how to handle it. And when you step back, it gives you a little bit, if you can see that you're on the right track or not. And bring that in there. Now, set that brush down, and let's get some trees in here. Now this is still just a little bit damp, but I can work some trees into that, no problem. I'm just going to set this brush down. Just a minute, I just noticed something. Just going to give this a little bit more work there. And lighten that just slightly. And I want that nice. So there's lots of pine needles on the ground, giving you that orangey tinge. There we go. Now I don't have my glasses on, so when I'm not working with my glasses on, there's always little areas that I like to go back into. And not wearing my glasses is also on purpose. I find that when I have my glasses on, I'm looking at too many details and I'm trying to get those details in. So that's a little trick for you if you are a detailed person and you want to loosen up a little and you wear glasses. Take your glasses off. It works every time. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a round brush to do my trees. Nice big point on there. And condition your brush always. Picking up the ultramarine blue, and I'm really loading it up. And I'm also going to pick up the yellow deep along with the ultramarine blue, and my brush is double loaded. So when I touch my canvas, it's going to release very easily. I'm going to start with this grouping over here. And I'm just going to bring that in like so. And these are those beautiful Northwestern Ontario pine trees. The white pines have so much character. And bring that over a little bit more. So now I'm going to roll my brush in the paint because I want that my brush to be nicely loaded. Now I'm starting off with a fairly dark green with the ultramarine blue and the yellow deep. My reason for that is I bring in the light of the trees much later. But you want to lay in your dark first and then go into the light. So I'm just going to move this, another tree in here. When it comes right to the very edge, it's best to just bring in another tree or leave out what's on the edge. And there are some openings seeing through to the other side. And there we go, just kind of moving that paint around. I'm not going to put, there's a dead tree right here, I'm not going to put that in, it's not necessary. You know, feel free to edit things out that you feel are not necessary. I don't put my tree trunks in first, I always put them in last, so that if I need to change the movement of a tree or the position of a tree, it's much easier to do it without having the tree trunks in. So watch how I do this on the edge here. Just depositing the color first, like so. Lots of paint, very important. And notice how I'm following the edge, and then there's a bit of an empty area here where you can see through. Now I'm going to pull that up like that. And we've got one particular tree that's got some really signature movement to it. If you think of the trees that the group of 7 painted in the Eastern Ontario and Algonquin Park, Northwestern Ontario has those beautiful pines as well, and they are windswept. So this is a nice cluster right here. And I'm just going to move that paint around a little. And let's bring in this guy here. So now here's a little trick here. I'm going to pick up a bit more yellow because there's some deciduous trees right here. So I'm just going to do this. And bring in that other white pine. But I'm going to move it in a little bit more. It's my artistic license that I can move that white pine over just ever so slightly so it's more into the scene. I'm going to make it a little bit taller, moving it closer to me and bringing it over a little bit more, like so. And I need a bit more paint. Bring that down a little because there's some greenery there. And let's bring in a little bit more of that yellow over here. So this is the yellow medium. And I can bring in a little bit more over here as well. Now, I can do a whole session just on trees, but this gives you a little bit of an idea. I'm going to add some of the reflection here. So So notice how I just kind of picked up my ultramarine blue and my yellow, and I'm going to pull it down and then bringing it across. Now I need more work in the water. That's going to happen later, but this gives you a little bit of an idea on how to bring in that reflection from the trees above and pulling the color over. And then later what I do is I take my blue brush and I pull the strokes through. So I'm just going to bring in this little bit of reflection here, pulling it down, and again pulling it down. It goes right down, and over here too. And then there's some dark areas in the water from the shadows. Now I'm going to use my blue brush that I loaded earlier, and I can cut into, now that's a little bit lighter than what I want. I'm just going to do this first. Now I can pick up some more cobalt blue and a tiny bit of cerulean blue, not very much. And I'm just going to pull the color through, like so. And there is the beginning of my little painting on Sandpoint Island. And I still have some work to do, but you can see how quickly you can start to develop the scene. And the trick is to use enough paint. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Thank you for watching today, and I hope that you enjoyed my little session on Northwestern Ontario Island. You can find out more information about my classes at LindaLovisaArtCanada.ca. I hope you'll join me.